Right. Hi everyone, it's Katie from the Clark Museum, and today we're going to be checking out our new exhibit space, or our new exhibit that's coming up right now. And I'll talk a little bit about the process of putting together exhibits. So we're going to get started right at 2, so we'll just give everyone a moment to tune on and tune in. Let me see. This is an exhibit in progress, as you can tell, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get started at 2. Until then, I might just kind of look around a little bit, give you a brief glimpse. All right, we'll be getting started right at 2 for those of you that are tuning in. It's about 5 minutes, so for now we're just going to kind of walk around the museum a little bit and take a look at things. So, in just a heads up, we are reopened, so you can come out and visit the museum for yourself. We're open 10 to 4, Wednesday through Sunday. So right now we're in the museum's Neelis Hall, taking a look at some of the cases. And we'll be getting started right at 2. And we'll be talking today about how exhibits get put together and kind of the different processes that happen to help teach the public. These are probably 2 of my favorite baskets. I really like the brightness of the yellow against the black. And they're both made by Lucy Hickox, who's actually in the exhibit that I'm currently working on. All right, so according to my watch, we're just about at 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and head back over here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, my name's Katie and I'm the Interim Director Curator at the Clark Museum. And today we're in the main hall. We're going to be checking out an exhibit that's going up right now and learning a little bit about how exhibits get put together. All right, so I am wearing a mask, so if it becomes hard to hear me, just put it in the comments and I'll talk louder. All right, so let me flip this camera around real quick. So the exhibit that's going up right now is called Notable Women of Humboldt County, and it's exactly that, highlighting notable women of Humboldt County. So the idea for this exhibit came from a list that was put together by a lady named Arlene Harton. If you're familiar with local history groups in the area, you've probably seen her at least once, if not many times. And she had a list of women that are notable for many different things. And she passed that list along to me, and I was looking for an idea for an exhibit to commemorate the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. And I thought this would be an interesting exhibit to do to highlight these achievements of women throughout the history of Humboldt County. So that's where the list came from. And then we had an intern named Melina who took on the list and started doing research on all the women. Eventually the list grew. It's over 100 women now, all throughout Humboldt County's history. Even before Humboldt County became a county. So we don't have enough room to highlight 100 people in this space. So we had to pick out some and do some highlights on that. So the list will be available through our website, so you'll be able to check that out once the exhibit goes live, and you can see brief bios on all the women on the list. So I started taking down the exhibit that was in this space on Thursday of last week, and then we were notified on Friday that we could reopen, so I've been kind of hustling to get the exhibit done. So I have about half of it done right now. You can kind of see it here, so it's kind of from these banners this way, kind of all this over here, and then you can see in the background there's still kind of some stuff that I got to get done. So that's why today's show is going to be a little bit shorter, because I still have stuff I got to work on. Ooh, sorry. So with that, the first step, of course, to putting up a new exhibit is taking down the old exhibit. So that happened last week on Thursday. These are some of the items that were from the last exhibit that we did. So those are currently being put away by Alex, our registrar. And what she's doing when she's putting these away, she's taking pictures of everything. She's updating condition reports so we know how the item's condition has changed over time. And she's also taking pictures of each item. And that's part of a larger project to get pictures of every item in the collection, which is good for record keeping and good for researchers and all kinds of stuff. So she's working on that. Meanwhile, I was working on writing text for the exhibit, doing some extra research to add to some of the bios, and using that to start looking for items. So when I put together exhibits, it's always a little bit different every time I do it. Sometimes I already have the items and then I have to build the story around it. Other times I have the story and I have to find items to build the story out. In this case, it was a little bit of both, but mostly a lot of having the story and having to find items to build it out. So, so let's see. So this case right here, you'll notice it has quite a good bit of things in it. This case highlights two people, Elta Cartwright on this side and Karen Logan on this side. And so if you didn't know, Elta Cartwright was the first woman to get onto the U.S. Olympic team. So we have a good bit of things from her, including photos, the number she wore when she raced, or when she was set to race in the Olympics, her running shoes, things like that. So with this one, we already had a good number of items, and we just had to record her story down in the text here. Same here for Karen Logan. We had someone donate all these pictures and many others last year or earlier this year, and we could kind of build the story out around those items. In other cases, we have the stories of women like Kate Buchanan, Catherine Zane, Jessie Woodcock, and Gail Buchanan, Karshner Roscoe, that we had their story, but we didn't necessarily have their items. So what we did in this case, or what I did in this case, was I looked at the years that she worked at HSU, or at the time it was Humboldt State College, HSC, and I was trying to find items in the collection that might have been around at that same time, and it happened to be that I found this yearbook. There she is, Kate Buchanan, who at the time was the Dean of Women. So I had to get a little creative to find items that would kind of fit with her story. In the case of Catherine Zane, she was an education person. She was a teacher, and eventually the vice principal of Eureka Junior High School. So we were able to find this in the collection. And many times, like in the case of this yearbook particularly, the item might not have been noted in our collection as this book has a picture of Kate Buchanan in it. So I had to go out looking for those. And then in other times, sometimes I too would just find items that have to do with the story. So all these women had something to do with Humboldt State College, now Humboldt State University. So I was able to include some items relating to Humboldt State. And then at other times, we didn't have anything in the collection having to do with the person we're highlighting. So this is the story of Ruth Mountain Grove, who lived from 1923 to 2006. And her story is really interesting. I'm not going to recap it here, but you can always come out and check it out. It looks a little lengthy, but it is definitely worth the read. She's a really fascinating lady. In this case, I was able to find someone in the community that had all this information and most of these pictures about Ruth, and I was able to reprint them and post them here in the exhibit. So I tried to draw things from Ruth's story and then arrange pictures in a way that kind of helped to tell that story. And over here, we're highlighting a couple women here. So Dr. Crutcher Risling Baldy, if you're familiar with her, she works at HSU. She's in their Native American Studies department. The only item I had from her was her book, which I've read, and I was able to find a picture of her online, and then I kind of picked some other items that would go along with her story, because this book is about women's coming of age ceremonies. So this is one of the aprons that we have in the collection. It's a ceremonial item, so it kind of goes with that story, and then a cap also that would be worn in different ceremonies. And then over here, I included this cap because it looks very much like this one that Lucy Thompson is wearing here in this photo. There's only one tiny difference that I can tell really between these two caps, which this one has what's called Snail's Trail here on the rim. This one doesn't appear to have that. So anyway, and as I was working along putting all these together, I was also rediscovering stories of women that we might not have originally had on the list, but that I wanted to add, like Bertha Thompson, who is Lucy Thompson's daughter. And then we were able to find things from Phoebe Maddox, who worked with anthropologists to preserve information on Karuk life and culture. So as you're working along on an exhibit, it tends to grow as you're working away on the research and everything. It sometimes becomes bigger than what you planned it to be. And it's also been really fun. I've been finding all kinds of things that I didn't realize we had, like this newspaper article, which, sorry for the glare. Let me see if I can. Okay, that helped a little bit. So this one, the headline, Nearly Lost Tradition of Basketry Being Returned by Hoopa Artisans. So this is a news story talking about basket weaving classes that were hosted by Vivian Hailstone, along with other people in the tribe, which I now realize this is probably sideways. Hang on. So, like, sometimes in our records, you know, it might not, the person's name who shows up in these articles might not be noted. So it sometimes takes some really creative, not guesses, but some creative wording to get the items that you're looking for, items related to what you're looking for. And sometimes, too, when we just didn't have items that I wanted to include in the exhibit, I went onto websites like Humboldt State University Special Collections to print out images that were relevant, like this one here, the IEQI gift shop that Vivian ran. There's also other resources like Calisphere and other university archives that are online to help with this kind of thing. Another one was the Huntington Library, where I got these two pictures. Sorry for the glare. So this is Polly Conrad, and this is Elizabeth Hickox, who I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. This is a really fascinating story. So Polly Conrad was one of the few survivors of the Indian Island Massacre, and her daughter Elizabeth went on to learn weaving and became one of the most well-known weavers in this area. So these photos are both from the Huntington Library, from the collection of Grace Nicholson, who frequently purchased Elizabeth's baskets. And then here's kind of some more images of that. So these are images from an exhibit that was at HSU specifically about Elizabeth Hickox. This basket right here is actually in the museum collection here. You can come and see it. And then some of these other ones are in private collections or in collections in different parts of the country. There's some more. So, and there are still women that I'm trying to figure out how the displays are going to work. So you'll notice there's a couple empty walls here. Actually more than a couple. That I need to put images up on that I'm kind of working on. So there are some women that we might have their story, but we might not even have a picture of them. Or the picture we have is small, or it can't be blown up to a larger size because of its file type. So as I kind of mentioned in last week's video, when we scan our images, they're scanned as TIFFs. So if we wanted to, we could make them the size of a billboard. That helps in situations like this where we want to print large-scale pictures. It makes it really easy to scale them up. But when the image is not scanned at a high resolution or not scanned as that file type, it makes it really hard to print them larger. So I'll be working on this for next week or so, trying to get these walls filled in. I can also show you guys over here. So we're going behind the scenes in the part that's closed off still. So this is another one that I was working on. So this case has to do with military women. And I still have some more information I have to put in here, but these are all World War II military posters that were made typically by the government to promote different activities or enlistment opportunities during the war. And you'll notice that women feature into some of them. Like this one has to do with not driving as much because you have to make your tires last through the war. This one has to do with the U.S. Cadet Nurse Corps. There's ones for the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. Actually, both of those are. And then this one in the middle is just kind of a throwback to 1778 and 1943. Americans will always fight for liberty. And of course, this one, I kind of wanted to put this in just because of everyone planting victory gardens nowadays. And I promise if you come in, the glare is less bad. So there's a couple women highlighted in this case. Kay Got Chaffee, Rachel Hine, and let me double check the name on this one. I've been researching a lot of people and names don't stick very well in my brain. Beth Rundell. So these little bios you'll see around kind of give you a brief glimpse into some of these women's lives. Some of the stories are kind of longer, some of them are shorter. I tried to include as much information as kind of was pertinent. But I'll be including something in this case talking about the role of women in the military during this war, or World War. So I guess I can show you this. So when we start putting cases together, so this is one of the cases. It's a little less than 6 feet. It's a little shorter than this table. So these cases are original to the museum. So these were made by high school students at Eureka High School when the museum was still at the high school. And they work mighty fine. So they got glass on them. And we prop them open with these pipes, which we usually only leave them open while we're working in them because we don't want there to be an earthquake and for them to fall over or anything. So we start with this empty case. It's like a big empty canvas. And I'll usually put the bios in here and I'll kind of skim through them. And I'll keep an eye out for things that we might have in the collection that coincides with it. And part of the reason why this case isn't done yet is because I'm having a hard time doing that. But I am continuing to work on it, and we'll figure it out one way or another. So in this case, Jean McCovey is going to be in it, and Rabbi Noemi Steinberg. When I was setting up each case, I was trying to find ways to connect the women that are in the display. So in this instance, Jean and Rabbi Naomi have both done environmental work in links to kind of spiritual sides of being. I just have to run really quick and get a charger for my phone. I'll be right back. Let me I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. Had to get my charger. Okay. So, yes, this is a case that I'm working on right now. So, also when putting together an exhibit in this museum in particular, there's some interesting space restraints. So like in this particular area, which still has these clothes up from our last exhibit, it's kind of this horseshoe U-shaped kind of thing. So like sometimes we'll have exhibit pieces set in and then we'll put a rope across so people don't climb in there. In other cases, I've actually put a case here so then people can kind of walk into this shape and see things and then get closer to things that are on display on the walls here or on the sides here. But I think in this case I'm going to do another one of these. There's kind of a, not like a scene, but there's something going on in here and there'll be a rope across it. And this one will be highlighting a lady named Muzzy, whose name was Margaret, and she was the manager and a performer at a place called the Glow Room at the Monte Carlo hotel or inn here in Eureka, or here in Humboldt County. And we have a table from the Glow Room, so that'll be in the display here. And let's see. So if you have any questions about exhibits going up, things like that, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll chat a little bit more about them. So one of the things that we do as part of this exhibit is a lot of times when we do reproduced photos, we'll put them on foam core. So if you're not familiar with it, it's like foam board is kind of another name for it, I guess. But it's kind of this paper, puffy board kind of stuff. Here's a picture of it. And so what we'll do, we used to have this glue that's as old as the hills, and we were trying to guglue pieces of paper onto these and then cut them to be to size, but the glue ended up running out, which I thought it never would. So I've gotten this spray adhesive, which has been super helpful. You just spray it on the back of the picture and then stick it on the foam core. And then when you're ready to cut it, use a ruler and this is a box cutter, but a blade pretty much. And then just whoop, whoop, and then you get nice little display plates. So we'll do those a lot of times for text that's going to be outside of the cases. So let me go find one really quick. Like over here. So like this foam core, for instance, the signage is glued on the front, and then it makes it look nice. And then plus, if we wanted to stick it on something like the wall, like over here, it looks really nice. And one thing that's kind of cool about these kinds of displays like this is that when this comes down, I'm able to repurpose it. I can either reuse the foam core by flipping it over and recutting things on the other side, or we can turn these into traveling exhibits, which is something I'm kind of working on. I still have the foam core signs from our Prohibition exhibit and from our Chinese expulsion exhibit, so I'm hoping to turn those into traveling ones at some point. So along with doing these kind of signs with the foam core and the pictures with the foam core, one of the last steps we do is we make these little tags. And this is from our old exhibit. You can see I repurposed it. But each item that's on display will have one of these. So it has what it is, the collection name, and then the catalog number. And we include this not only so people know what the heck it is that they're looking at, but also where it came from. Sometimes people whose family have donated things, they like to come in and see if their stuff's on display. This kind of makes it easier for them to know. And then the catalog number, which is also known as an accession number or an object number, we also include in case someone's like, hey, I want to learn more about this item. Can you look it up for me? Things like that. Sorry, this is so squirrely. But anyway, so that's also on foam core. We print these on labels and then we cut them out like we do with the big signs. And this is a good way also to use up smaller pieces of foam core that might not get used up otherwise. So if you have any nice foam core that you're not using, we have enough currently, and we can get it locally here. But if you have any foam core you're not using and would like it to have a second life, you can definitely feel free to bring it by us. Just be sure it's flat and it's clean and we can stick stuff to it. So with that, we have about 5 minutes here in our shortened session. So once the exhibit's all put together, generally when it's not COVID times, we'll have an exhibit opening, and that'll usually be on Arts Alive, so people will come out and come see the exhibit. Sometimes we'll have a presentation or some other kind of event that goes with it. But this time around we won't. So what we're going to do is on September 18th, which is a Friday, during that week's Ask a Curator, I'm going to be giving a tour of the exhibit, talking more about some of these women that are on display, pointing out some items, pointing out some details, things like that. So definitely check that out when it comes out. And yeah, it's been a busy week. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. We have some really special items that are going to be on display in this exhibit, so I definitely recommend coming out to check it out while we're open, which of course is Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 4. And we hope to see you around. Also, when you come out, you can check out our chandelier, which looks awesome. You can also check out the visitor center, which is open. Neelis Hall is open. And so far, half of this exhibit is open. Also, the temporary Pieces of Our Lives exhibit is open, and it'll be up until the end of the year. So if you haven't seen it yet, be sure to come out. COVID is changing things very quickly, so you should definitely plan to come out sooner rather than later, because we never know when things are going to change. So with that, are there any questions? This is kind of a flyby on how exhibits get put together. And every museum's a little different. Like some museums actually have rooms that are set aside for preparing items for exhibit. In our case, we don't really have that extra space. So we'll sometimes pull some items ahead of time, but a lot of times it's while the exhibit's going up, I'm going upstairs looking for items to put into the exhibit. Sometimes I already have kind of an idea of what I want to put into the exhibit, but frequently I'll have to go up there and say, okay, I'm looking for an item that relates to, and then I kind of look around and find things that way. I also use the database to help kind of see if we have anything related to what I'm looking for. But sometimes it's a modified version of hide and go seek, trying to find items that are relevant. All right. So, yeah. So be sure to come out and check out the exhibit. As I complete more things, I'll be opening up more of it. So that'll be ahead of the actual official opening. So if you want to get a sneak peek, definitely come out in the next week or two, and you'll start to see more and more of the exhibit as more and more of it gets completed. All right. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. We hope to see you around here at the museum. Let me flip this around. We hope to see you around here at the museum. If you're a member, you can come on in for free because you have a membership. If you're not yet a member, we have a $25 senior/student membership option, a $55 family membership option, and a $100 patron option, which gets you into museums across the United States for the cost of our membership in that level, which is $100. You can definitely get your money's worth with that option, so I highly recommend it. If you enjoyed this content, you can also donate through our Facebook page. You can donate through our website. You can send us a check, or you can come in and drop some money into the donation box. Alrighty, so it looks like Lisa Brockman says, I'm really looking forward to a return visit. All right. Yeah, Lisa, we look forward to seeing you too. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up today. And keep an eye on our Facebook and our social media and our websites, and we'll be keeping you updated on what's going on here at the Clark. Thanks. We'll see you soon.